Welcome to Audit the Audit, where we sort out the who and what and the right and wrong of police interactions. This episode will be somewhat different from our normal format and is a collaboration with our second channel, Audit the Court. Today, we will be covering the body cam footage from a police encounter here on ATA. Tomorrow, March 20th, 2025, we will be analyzing a deposition from an officer involved in the interaction on ATC. You can find a link to Audit the Court in the description and in the pinned comment below. And now, let's dive right in. On December 15th, 2018, the owner of the Otto the Watchdog YouTube channel, independent investigative journalist Winston Knowles, stood on a public street corner in Royce City, Texas, holding up several different signs, some of which contained profanity. After receiving a complaint regarding one of the signs that included profanity, Officer Clark of the Royce City Police Department responded and approached Mr. Knowles.
How's it going? Are you doing okay, sir? You're just not going to answer? We're getting reports that your signs have profanity. Can I check them to make sure that they don't? And then you can stand here all day long if you want to.
Clear. He's going to do the vaccine. Stay in permission.
Here's 7.711. Go ahead and head over here.
You won't let me look at your signs just to make sure there's not any profanity on them?
No, sorry.
You what?
No, never mind. You're supposed to go in. I'm not doing anything. Am I doing something?
If you are holding up signs for the public to see that have profanity, then yes, you are doing something illegal. I'm just trying to make sure that all I want to do is make sure that what I've been told is not what's on your signs, and then you can stand here all day, like I said. Over here.
Well, I was doing just fine. So,
And I've already heard you say a cuss word once, so.
what did your other signs say, sir? Sir.
Please. Stu?
Peace. Someone come. Alright.
I don't consent to any searches or...
Sergeant Nick Dial and Officer Keith Short arrive on the scene in response to Officer Clark's call for backup. And when Mr. Knowles refuses to show him the other signs, Sergeant Dial hits the signs out of his hands, kicks them, and looks through them. The Fourth Amendment protects an individual's possessory interest in their personal effects. And as the Supreme Court explained in the 1984 case of United States v. Jacobson, a seizure of property occurs when there is some meaningful interference with an individual's possessory interests in that property. Now here, when Sergeant Dial slapped the signs out of Mr. Knowles' hands, kicked them, and then looked through them, he seized the signs within the meaning of the Fourth Amendment. Officers may lawfully seize a citizen's possessions when they have a warrant, or when a recognized exception to the warrant requirement applies, such as when the possessor voluntarily consents to the seizure, when officers are lawfully present and the incriminating nature of an item is immediately apparent, or when immediate action is necessary to prevent the destruction of evidence or respond to an emergency. Now, in this instance, Sergeant Dial did not have a warrant, and it is highly probable that a court would conclude that none of the recognized exceptions to the warrant requirement applied to Mr. Knowles' signs. Rather, it seems that Sergeant Dial simply wanted to investigate the signs to see if there was any profanity on them, which he believed would be evidence of a crime. As such, a court would likely hold that Mr. Knowles was not required to surrender his signs for inspection, and that Sergeant Dial did not have the lawful authority to seize the signs and look through them absent a warrant or a recognized exception to the warrant requirement.
This has been some drop time. It is. Disorderly conduct. It's Is your ID? No. How you feeling the ID? Put your hands behind your back. Since he's felon ID, take him for disorderly conduct.
I would like to speak to the supervisor right now.
The supervisor is the one that's right here talking to you,
I
so
would like to speak to his supervisor. As far as I understand, I have not committed a crime today.
when we're here answering a complaint and you refuse to identify yourself, that is a crime.
Mr. Knowles argues that he has not committed a crime, and the officers respond that his refusal to identify himself while they were investigating a complaint was a criminal offense. Under Section 38.02 of the Texas Penal Code, an individual commits the offense of failure to identify only when, after being lawfully arrested, they intentionally refuse to give their name, address, or date of birth to an officer, or when they give false identifying information during a lawful arrest or detention. Now here, the supposed refusal to identify occurred before Mr. Knowles was placed under arrest, when, contrary to the officer's assertions, Texas law only requires individuals to identify themselves after they have been arrested, not any time that an officer is quote-unquote investigating a complaint. Additionally, it is important to note that the officers did not ask Mr. Knowles for the identifying information that the statute actually covers. Instead, they asked whether he had physical identification on his person, and when he said no, they immediately treated that answer as a crime. Informing officers that you do not have ID in your possession is not the same as refusing to provide your name, address, or date of birth, and the statute does not make it a crime to simply lack an identification card while standing on a public street. Accordingly, a court would almost certainly conclude that Mr. Knowles did not commit the offense of failure to identify.
When we're here answering a complaint and you refuse to identify yourself, that is a crime.
726 on that one, they're good at.
When you're displaying these signs and people are calling because it's offensive to them, that is another crime. So yes, you have committed a crime. You committed two.
You didn't warn me.
We don't have to warn you. Ignorance of the law.
I asked you politely to see your signs, and you said, no. Consent to any searches or seizures of my property or my person. Is that your cell phone and tripod? If it's not, I'm gonna leave it sitting here. If it is, I'm gonna take it and put it up so somebody doesn't steal it. If you want to act this way, I'll leave it sitting here and let somebody steal it. Why would you do that? Okay. That's for, we don't know the stuff that is. I have a question. What am I being arrested for?
Disorderly conduct. Disorderly conduct.
Mr. Knowles asks what he's being arrested for, and the officers inform him that he's being arrested for disorderly conduct and failure to identify. Now, as we discussed earlier in this episode, it is highly unlikely that a court would conclude that Mr. Knowles had violated the failure to identify statute. As for a disorderly conduct charge, Section 42.01 of the Texas Penal Code prohibits a range of conduct, most of which must occur in a public place, including fighting, making unreasonable noise, displaying a firearm in a manner calculated to alarm, and creating nauseous and unreasonable odors. Subsection A1 of the statute, which is the provision that the officers appear to have had in mind here, prohibits using abusive, indecent, profane, or vulgar language in a public place, but only when the language by its very utterance tends to incite an immediate breach of the peace. Since the First Amendment limits the government's ability to punish speech merely for being offensive, this standard is a narrow one. The question is not whether the speech was rude, offensive, or laced with profanity, but whether it amounted to so-called fighting words, meaning personally directed epithets that are likely to provoke an immediate violent reaction. We will explore the First Amendment analysis in further detail in the Audit the Court episode on this interaction, but based on these facts, it is highly unlikely that a court would conclude that Mr. Knowles' signs and statements amounted to disorderly conduct.
The failed ID.
Ask questions. Yeah, and off the tongue to ask things right. You know what? Nobody even asked me to identify it. All he did that beat the head up people.
Let me explain something to you, young man. We're not holding court on the side of the road with you, okay?
So you're arrested?
We're not holding court with you on the side of the road. Any questions you have, you can ask the jail. Are you in?
You can get out?
I can't. Roll back over and I'll help you up. I'm not sure if I can do that either. I would like to see your supervisor right now before you assault me any further. We're not. I am being assaulted. I have not committed a crime. I have not committed a crime. I have not committed a crime. Peter, get up. You're hurting me. You're hurting me.
Get up.
I cannot get up.
Get up.
Get up. I'm trying to get up. That please get up. Well, assist me up instead
We're
of trying to help you up.
Lift you up.
See the game. Roll up to your knees and they're going to lift you up.
Roll up to my knees. I'm offended. Me to my knees.
We already have one.
Now they'll lift you straight up. Stand up.
Okay, help me up. I've committed no crime. I've committed no crime whatsoever. Please get my equipment. Your crash here. You're gonna leave my shit on the side of the road. Get my equipment. Get my equipment. Don't tell me what to do.
Mr. Knowles was charged with disorderly conduct and resisting arrest. Both charges were ultimately dropped, and Mr. Knowles subsequently filed a federal civil rights lawsuit on December 18, 2020. As mentioned earlier, this episode is a collaboration with our second channel, Audit the Court, where tomorrow we will be examining a deposition from this civil case and discussing the outcome of the lawsuit. If you are interested in seeing Sergeant Dial answer questions under oath about this encounter, well, then be sure to check out the links below. Overall, the Royce City officers get an F for seizing Mr. Knowles' personal effects without lawful authority, arresting him for failure to identify under circumstances that the statute plainly did not cover, and charging him with disorderly conduct without an adequate legal basis. When Sergeant Dial knocked the signs out of Mr. Knowles' hands and looked through them, he conducted a warrantless seizure of personal effects with no applicable legal exception to justify it. The entire premise of the seizure was that profanity on a sign is illegal, which it typically is not, and an officer's belief that an individual possesses something illegal that is not in plain view does not, by itself, authorize a warrantless search and seizure. Additionally, the officer's claims that Mr. Knowles had committed disorderly conduct and failure to identify were legally unfounded. As discussed earlier in this episode, the disorderly conduct statute only prohibits profanity when it rises to the level of so-called fighting words, which is a narrow category of unprotected speech that is limited to personally directed language that is likely to provoke immediate violence. Holding profane signs on a public street corner generally will not clear this bar. Likewise, the failure to identify statute requires an individual to identify only after a lawful arrest. Here, Mr. Knowles had not been arrested at the time that he was asked for identification, and the officers never actually asked for the information that the statute covers. Every enforcement action that the officers took against Mr. Knowles stemmed from the same mistaken premise that the profanity on his sign was illegal, and that error was followed by additional Fourth Amendment violations that further escalated the unlawfulness of the officer's conduct. This interaction shows how a basic misunderstanding of constitutional law can distort officer decision-making and turn a citizen's lawful public demonstration into an unlawful arrest. Mr. Knowles gets an A- for accurately asserting his constitutional rights during the encounter and refraining from active physical resistance during an unlawful arrest, while engaging in conduct during the arrest that, while understandable, created meaningful legal exposure. Mr. Knowles correctly and effectively invoked his First and Fourth Amendment rights regarding the signs, identifying that profanity is not illegal and that he did not have to give the officers his signs. He also correctly argued that he did not refuse to identify himself after the officers arrested him for telling him that he did not have physical identification on his person. When the officers moved to arrest him, Mr. Knowles did not fight, he did not strike anyone, and he ultimately complied with the commands to stand up. However, dropping to the ground when the officers directed him to put his hands behind his back is worth examining here. Texas courts have held that a resisting arrest charge does not require directing aggressive force at an officer or striking them, and that conduct such as pulling against an officer's grasp, twisting, or struggling against an officer's efforts to effect an arrest can satisfy the statute. Accordingly, the principle that passive physical resistance can still constitute resisting arrest has meaningful support in Texas case law. Dropping to the ground when directed to submit to arrest is the kind of conduct that, depending upon the circumstances and a court's interpretation, could potentially fall within that range, and it gave the officers a colorable basis for a charge that might otherwise have been unavailable to them. The stronger move, legally speaking, would have been to comply with handcuffing and then contest the arrest in court, which Mr. Knowles ultimately did by fighting the charges and filing a federal civil rights lawsuit. I commend Mr. Knowles for understanding that the courtroom, not the street corner, is where unlawful arrests are most most effectively challenged, and for taking meaningful steps to pursue accountability after this encounter. Let us know if there's an interaction or legal topic that you'd like us to discuss in the comments below. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you over on the Audit the Court channel.